you're not involved. Don't try to convince yourself that these problems don't affect you at all. Because now it's Lebanon, Azania, Grenada. How many more? Tell me now, how many more? Don't you stand on the sidelines and watch your children go off to war. Don't stand back and wait for this violence to come to your door. Because now it's Chile, Guatemala, El Salvador. How many more? Tell me now. How
Peace and love. Welcome to the U.S. Political Prisoner and You. This is the platform of the Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition. This is day 13th of Black August. It's a time where we fast, we train, we educate ourselves, we recommit ourselves to our liberation cause. Before I introduce my guest today, I'd like to talk about who Ruchell Magee is, so we have an understanding about who he is as we get into the discussion, because his story needs to be told repeatedly, because what's worse than a tragedy is an ignored tragedy. So Ruchell Magee was born on an only child on March 17th, 1939 in the small town of Franklinton, Louisiana. Across the Deep South, Jim Crow laws, white supremacist lynchings, KKK terror, segregation, and legal bias against Black people were common. In 1955, at the young age of 16, Ruchell was accused of aggravated attempted rape due to his relationship with a white girl in KKK territory. For context, Emmett Till was lynched, mutilated, and murdered in August 1955 for allegedly whistling at a white woman. Magee was given a completely bogus trial with an all-white jury who sentenced him to 8 hard years in the notorious Angola State Prison, a former plantation. In 1962, the state deprived him of his inherited property and ordered that he leave Louisiana and go to Los Angeles. Ruchell was finally allowed to leave Louisiana's dungeons in 1963, so he headed to Los Angeles for a fresh start. Only 6 months later, Ruchell and his cousin Leroy were arrested as they sat with a man named Ben Brown in Brown's car. Brown told police a far-fetched tale that Ruchell and his cousin had kidnapped him in a dispute over a $10 bag of weed, even though the cousins didn't even have the car keys. As the police arrested him, they beat him so badly that he had to be hospitalized for 3 days. But the injustices were only beginning. The racist Superior Court of Los Angeles County railroaded him with the trumped-up charge of kidnapping to commit robbery. There was extreme malpractice from both the prosecutor and a defense attorney, which came to a head with Magee's lawyer pleading him guilty without consent. Ruchell was unjustly imprisoned with a 7 years to life charge for this alleged crime. Ruchell strived to develop his mind in prison, where he learned the rich traditions of African history and liberation struggles. He took on the name Sankey because he felt a connection with the African freedom fighter Sankey, who led a rebellion on a slave ship, La Amistad. Magee won himself a second trial by pointing out that his indictment was improperly joined with his cousin's case, among other improper acts. In 1965, Magee unfortunately faced the same judge that bound and gagged him in the first trial for making lawful objections. In Ruchell's own words, the second trial used fraud to hide fraud, upholding the conviction and shooting his trial down. Magee had gained a reputation in the prison systems as a people's lawyer by doing work like filing the lawsuit for the wrongful death of prisoner Fred Billingsley, who was beaten and tear gassed to death in his cell in San Quentin prison in February 1970. Ruchell's work helped lead to a large settlement for the Billingsley family. After 7 years of torture in California's prison system, he took an opportunity for freedom when it came to him. On August 7th, 1970, Ruchell Magee and William Christmas were among the witnesses for the trial of James McClain, who was on trial for assaulting a guard after the brutal Bensley murder. Jonathan Jackson, the younger brother of prisoner and Black Panther Party Field Marshal George Jackson, attempted to free his brother and the rest of the Soledad brothers by taking control of the courtroom in Marion County Courthouse. Jonathan announced that he was taking over and offered weapons to Magee, Christmas, and McLean. Even though he wasn't aware of the plan at its start, he knew that this could be his last chance to escape slavery and get the world's attention on his unjust conviction. The prison guards opened fire on the group as they left the building, killing Jackson, Christmas, McLean, and the judge, and critically wounding Ruchell and prosecutor. Magee was in prison almost continuously between the ages of 16 and 83. And when he was released in 2023 under California's compassionate release law, he died 81 days later. So that is the story of Ruchell Magee. I guess you would classify him as a prisoner of consciousness and a prisoner of war. So my brother, Baba Ashanti, welcome to our podcast. Appreciate your time. For those who don't know who you are, please let us know.
Right on. Thank you, Brother Frank. Thank you. I'm honored to be here, and especially you representing the Northeast Political Prisoners Coalition in the work that y'all do. My name is Ashanti Alston. I'm a former member of the Black Panther Party in the Black Liberation Army. I was captured as a Black Liberation Army soldier in the mid-70s. Whatnot, me and two other comrades. And we have been just like, ever since the days that we joined the Panther Party as teenagers, many of us, we just been carrying on this work. So even now, like from young teenager, this has been my life. And this is the life I hope that others that join the struggle, want to take on, because we ain't giving up until we free. We not giving up. So at present, I'm on the advisory board of the National Jericho Movement, but also fights for the liberation of our political prisoners. I live in Rhode Island, and I am very happy to be here.
Welcome, brother. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the contributions you made to our liberation cause and immense sacrifices. And one of the things that I feel like the highest level of honor that we could give to brothers like you and other political prisoners is that we continue to work. We let them know that this is what we're trying to do. We don't have it all figured out. We are ready to accept your criticism and your consultation, because you put in the work. And it's a process. The fight is definitely ongoing. As we learn about Ruchell Magee and his story, I want to ask you first, how should Ruchell Magee be recognized during Black August?
Well, the first thing is the context. Black August, and why Black August, as that constant reminder, that we in this continuous war of liberation. So that whole idea of Black August came about as to develop a new tradition around remembering our resistance, and how that memory has to be at our service to never forget how we got in this situation on Turtle Island, where these Europeans have come here with their colonization process, and they built this evil empire on the back of this turtle. And our presence here is a constant reminder. So Black August is that, and has been doing that job really well. I feel like in the last several years. So when you look at Ruchell, he has to be placed alongside of so many of our fallen warriors who have stood up for us and made such a tremendous mark. Like his name's Senku. I don't know if it's Senku or Senke, but we get it, right? Coming from the African who was enslaved on that ship called Amistad. They plotted that rebellion and how they was going to take this ship over and sail back to the motherland. Even the name that he took, shows that he had at some point, decided that his life wasn't going to be that life that this empire had assigned to him. He wasn't going to be that oppressed person in the neighborhood or in the community that was just going to live as if nothing mattered. So when you look at him in that context, and you look at what that Marion County courthouse operation was, it was monumental. It was monumental. You had 17-year-old Jonathan Jackson, young
Yeah.
brother of our Field Marshal, George Jackson, uh, decide that he was going to take action to liberate these comrades from the courthouse for a much larger operation, And when you look at how they done it, it was really like it it not only struck a blow against this system in terms of them trying to convince us to be docile, but it was like, we're going to do it any way that we can. And Jonathan, in particular, story may not be told, was supposed to have some other help with him when this operation happened, but decided that whatever reasons others didn't show up, this was the plan and this was the way it was going to go. When he came into that courtroom, the first thing he told all of the camera people and everything, you can take all the pictures you want. This is a new day. This is
Wow.
a new day here, and we're taking charge. So then the guns, you got William Christmas, you got William Christmas and what's the other brother's name? John McClane. They got the weapons and everything. They take the judge, they take some of the jurors and everything. It was a whole plan around what they were going to do. And a lot had to do with possibly being able to force the system to release George and some of the other political prisoners. But they never assumed that once they got out of that courtroom into the van, that them police and guards was going to just shoot up the whole van and kill everybody. They was hoping for a more negotiated situation.
Yes.
One of the heroic things that even Ruchell did, and it's so much the character of Ruchell, and you explain some of it, it was that it was women jurors in that van. And he tried to cover their bodies when it was obvious that all the bullets being shot in there, they was trying to kill up everybody. And even with that, he's trying to save lives.
Yes.
That's Ruchell. So even though the operation wasn't successful, it was just the awesomeness of the attempt that showed, just like Nat Turner and others, this
Absolutely.
empire can be fought, and it can be set with courageous examples that even in defeat, there's a victory for the fighting back spirit. And I think that was so significant about that, and how we got to see Ruchell in that sense as same on the same platform as a Nat Turner, as a Harriet Tubman, and even many of our BLA and Panther comrades and others who have given their lives. He's right there, who had never gave up after decade after decade after decade in prison. He never gave up. So he that's the kind of what he deserves from us to be highlighted.
Absolutely, because one of the things that I find fascinating is that once he became conscious, he decided that he's going to do work while in prison, and he helped those people who needed help. I think that said a lot to his fighting spirit, because he realized that the system was unjust, and he had to stand up. He had to fight back. He didn't get like caught up in the deep depression about his situation. He just said that if anything's going to change, it has to happen at my hands at fighting back. My second question is, what lessons do you think are most important when discussing Ruchell Magee?
One, definitely that there's always resistance. There's always resistance. There ain't never been a time that we have not resisted. And it's just us understanding that resistance takes many forms. It can take outward forms. It can take inward forms. It could take outward forms in terms of that kind of armed guerrilla fight back, or it can take outward forms where you're just going to disobey the law in many other ways. But I want to focus maybe more so on some of the inward forms. And I think especially when we start talking about specific individuals, as a way to understand that we, if there's a way that we can put ourselves in their lives, we can maybe see some of the inner characteristics that made them do what they did, you know. So you got the community, you know, like here he is in that prison, from the Angola to the San Quentin ones, the California ones. At some point, he decides that he's going to go through that Malcolm X transformation. He's going to go from his own Detroit Red to Malcolm X. You know, he's going to take on a different name. He's going to start to redefine even his relationships to his other prisoners in there. That means that a lot of the things that he might have done on a normal day is going to change. They may want to know, man, you in these study groups now. What's going on? We getting ready to play some cards. We can play some spades, you know, or we getting ready to do something on the yard. And it's obvious that he's moving his life in a different way. His whole life is.
Yes, absolutely. My brother freezed for a second. He should be back on shortly. But at this point, he's talking about the transformation of Ruchell Magee. And that comes from him being conscious, him realizing that, you know, he's learning more and he has to evolve and he has to be the example of what he wants for his people. Ruchell Magee spent the majority of his life in prison. But while in prison, he decided that he's going to stand up and organize. He's going to be a defense for people who need his defense. He provided documentation legally for those who needed it done. That's what impressed me a lot about him, because he was accountable in prison and allowing himself to be in a position to stand and fight back against an unjust system. You know, Ruchell Magee, there's quotes that are associated with him, and I think these quotes are very important to deal with because it lets you know his frame of mind. That is, it says, "I'm still fighting to get the truth to the real people who want growth in the human race. Truth is the right medicine. We must fight to win." So when you hear this truth, you can apply it today in 2025 to anything that's going on. Our brothers and sisters who are fighting against ICE, you know, we have to fight against that because that is sabotaging our self-determination, our right to exist on our own terms. So you saying that you are going to stand up and fight because you have a responsibility to do so. And another quote that the brother had, it said, "Slavery 400 years ago, slavery today, it's the same, but with a new name." When I hear that, I think about the prison industrial complex system. So Ruchell Magee is in prison majority of his life. So when he says this statement, he is telling you from a prisoner's point of view, a brother who understands that, you know, this is taking advantage of the people, the common people, working class people while they're in prison. You think about what they're being paid, think about corporations who are benefiting for the slave labor. So Ruchell Magee is putting that word out to the people, letting the people know about what's going on in the prison industrial complex system, and the fact that this idea or this issue must be confronted and it must be dealt with. Please pardon me as my guest has a technical difficulty, but you know, we must continue the program. We must be very committed to this work because we have to have ongoing discussions about political prisoners, especially in Black August. You know, because Black August is a time that is dedicated to political prisoners. Who are they and what do they mean for us? What lessons we learn from their lives and how we need to commit ourselves to connecting with them, writing to them, be a part of organized work to bring them home. There's always something that you can do. You can get involved in fundraisers. You can get involved in Curb Fest, which are using culture as a weapon. Having an event, a program in your community that benefits political prisoners is allowing them to feel appreciated, to experience that sense of gratitude, right? To know that, you know, what I've done isn't done for nothing. Somebody somewhere appreciating what I've sacrificed so much for. And Russell Maroon Schultz, that's another political prisoner that gave so much of himself. Hey, you back on, brother?
Yeah, man, just my internet just went out just like that.
Yes. I'm sorry that happens, but we got to continue. You know,
Yes.
so I was
Okay.
I don't know where you was at, but I could go on to the next question if you want.
Sure. Yes.
All right. So the next question was, when educating the youth on Ruchell Magee, what do we want them to learn the most?
Okay. Well, always that, our presence here is this is a part of that European colonization that we have got to get really clear on why we're here, how we got here, so that we can stop getting, like Malcolm say, bamboozled, into thinking that this system is going to do something good for us, free us, or include us, all that bullshit. Um, and that it ain't just merely like being in this, but to remember that revolutionaries all through our story have been telling us that we can't just settle for merely existing. We can't just settle for just, keep begging these people. We have got to be clear that we have got to be free. We have got to liberate ourselves, you know. We've got to define our own freedom, so um thinking about Ruchell is, again, he was always very clear. He would not stop using the word slave, rebel, slave operation. That's how he even saw the Marion County Courthouse operation. So it's a constant
Wow.
reminder, even for people that's into abolition today. It's like he always saw that connection, always saw it you know and 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 so the other thing about him is, like, for people to see his life as we want people to see Malcolm's life, or in Afeni Shakur's life. Because Afeni Shakur, those people from the streets and all other stuff, the significance of the Black Panther Party was that it gave many of us who was like, you know I don't care whether you call us working class or in the streets, but the Panther Party was definitely an opening for many who was like in the streets, out of the streets, from the streets, in the prisons. It gave us a way to see us playing a dignified role in our own liberation struggle. So those people like Ruchell, to get the younger folks to see that there is a way forward for us, for younger folks to see themselves playing that heroic role. I've often shared with people, like, in terms of my own story, about how I got involved. This is during the '67 rebellion. It's Plainfield, New Jersey. Small, the Black community, it's a small town anyhow. Black community small. But to see the young Black folks in my neighborhood come back with M1 rifles and run the police out of the community. Oh, I'm 13, 14 years old. I
In your
know
mind.
I know how I want to see myself. A-Trap Brown's Die Nigga Die. He makes a comment around Plainfield, and he says that Plainfield had the only successful rebellion, and that was because, what they did, and there was this white cop that started it all. They beat
Yeah.
this white cop to death. So A-Trap Brown's thing was, in terms of the death count, one white cop got killed, no Black people got killed. He's like, oh, that's a victory, because that wasn't the situation with Detroit and Newark and other places like that. But for me, I saw the role I wanted to play. So it made sense for persons like me and Jihad Abdul Mamit, who we grew up together. You know, we knew when we found out about the Panther Party, what direction we wanted to go. And it's one with dignity. And it's
Yes, sir.
one, like Malcolm would say, by any means necessary. Even though we still teenagers, we were high school students. We're gonna be in this with dignity. We're not gonna be them niggas anymore. We are
Yes.
now new human beings in the making, in the process. willing to do whatever we had to do, whether it's being the most revolutionary community organizers or the most revolutionary guerrillas in the ranks of the Black Liberation Army. So when those things happen, like the Jonathan Jacksons and the Ruchells and the others, we know, like, yes, we in this. So yes, there's going to be loss of life, but like the Rupa say, there's going to be that on both sides, but it's going to be that until we win. And it has to be that kind of determination, like, we can win. We can win.
Absolutely, brother. I appreciate you giving that historical reference, because that is important that we know about our victories, because sometimes, we feel down and we feel like this
Yes.
is not going to be no change. But then we got to remind of ourselves that there are people who fought back, and we need to be inspired by them. I think that, as we go deeper into Black August, it's important that we train. It's important that we fast. It's important that we study, and it's important that we take on the course, or the responsibility of freeing our political prisoners. While you were in prison, did you have a defense committee?
We had our group had maybe two. And let
Okay.
me tell you, this was during that time where there was not a lot of support for us. It was like support from those few groups and individuals that just stayed loyal to what we were about. They understood it. They was not going to let anything divert them. You talking about the National Committee for Defense of Political Prisoners coming out of Harlem, which was primarily started by members of the Black Panther Party. You had when we were captured in New Haven, Connecticut, it was a Trotskyist group that was also one of our main supports. But we wasn't on everybody's agenda. Many of the folks on the so-called left would not mess with us. And of course, them Black organizations that was trying to fit into the system, that wanted to become a part of it and all like that, they're not touching us. But one group I will give a lot of credit to was the East out of Brooklyn. You familiar with the
Wow.
East?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
the
yes. I heard
East
about them.
the East was like a Black nationalist organization that kept the cultural aspects going. They would, if we had trials, whether whoever's was, the East was there because the East saw us, especially the Black Liberation Army, as
Yes, sir.
its army,
Wow.
and they would make sure they were there with the kids. And you're talking
Yes,
about
sir.
something that mattered, that mattered, that mattered. Other than that, especially many of us out of the BLA, it was always we captured, but that ain't it. We trying to figure out how to get up on out of here. We trying to get up out here to get back to the struggle. So we wasn't all that, well, we here, they gave us 50 years, I guess it's over. Our attitude was, this is just different terrain. This is just different war terrain. We gonna fight. We gonna educate, gonna organize, but every opening we see to get out of here, we taking. So
Oh,
that's
wow.
why it led to things like the liberation of Asada Shakur. And Asada wasn't the only one who was liberated. There was many attempts in between, many that did not work. But I'm proud to this day to say that even when they didn't work, we kept at it. We kept trying because we are soldiers. We are those slave rebels
Yes,
that
brother.
Rousseau talked about. you know. And so whatever the terrain, we're gonna fight. We're gonna fight. And when we have to change up the tactics because of that, right on. But the goal is our liberation. Our liberation must be had.
Exactly. You gave them a lot to think about, and you gave our viewers a lot to think about when it comes to our political prisoners. I think that we have to be very serious about our political prisoners. We can't let them be forgotten. We can't let them die in prison. We got to write to them. We got to put them involved in our conversations when we talk about our liberation. They are important. They made immense sacrifices. So, brother, I appreciate your time. I know you got some things to do, and you're always welcome to this platform. And thank you, brother, for everything.
Well, thank you again, Frank, brother Frank. Thank you, the Northeast Political Prisoners Coalition, and HOLLA, and New York National Jericho, all the folks that have been over the years supporting our political prisoners and prisoners of war. Your work means that we didn't do none of that in vain. Y'all are carrying this on, so we thank you, and we're just glad that it can be intergenerational this time. So let's do it. Let's keep doing it.
Yes, brother. You know the call. What's the call?
Free them all.
Free them all.
Indians live proud and free before the oppressor's slavery. Black people live proud and free. How many more? Tell me now. How many more? Don't you stand on the sidelines and say you're not involved. Don't try to convince yourself that these problems don't affect you at all. Because now it's Lebanon, Azania, Grenada. How many more? Tell me now. How many more? Don't you stand on the sidelines and watch your children